because I can still see everybody when I'm sitting at my desk. So, all right. So, Max Weber is a person that did a lot of writing about bureaucracy, and so sometimes we look to him to try to understand. When you look right here, it says bureaucracy is capable of attaining the highest degree of efficiency. Doesn't that seem contrary to what we just said? People talk about bureaucracy being ineffective and a lot of red tape. So we need to kind of flip it on both perspectives. Part of it can be very inefficient, but it's more about our frustration and our implementation. The whole idea of bureaucracy is that it's supposed to be creating a lot of efficiency because it is very focused. So on the next screen you've got, this is basically the definition. This is what would have to be present in a bureaucracy. This could be American bureaucracy, this could be corporation bureaucracy, this could be Chinese bureaucracy, it could be any of that stuff. When we talk about the fact that it's rational, you know, there was a time point when, like in modern societies, there was a time point where, like people's businesses or people's organizations, they weren't so large, and so one person is responsible for everything. Did y'all ever get to take the field trips where you go to the one-room schoolhouse down at Frisco Square? Maybe that was after y'all, maybe y'all were too old already. So it's so fun. I've gone with both of my kids, and there's a, you know what I'm talking about, like down at the Heritage Center, there's like that one, so there's an old school, and it's the one-room schoolhouse, and when you're in elementary school and you're studying Texas history, they go. And it's really cool to think about the fact that you had kids of all these different ages in the room, and you had this one teacher that was responsible for teaching everything. Can you imagine that today? Like that you were in one place. I mean, you wouldn't want that, right? Like, you want me to be your government teacher, but that's all. Like, you don't want me teaching you anything else because that's like what I focused on. And that's where my knowledge is, and so that's what I can share. So it's more rational today because of our access to information and because of all the things that we do to have people focus on particular tasks rather than have them be responsible for every task or be responsible for every subject or whatever it is. Mike?
It's like something we went over in economics. It's just like the economic policy and specialization is that we can get better for each thing when people
Oh,
specialize.
absolutely. That totally makes sense. This one right here, hierarchical authority structure. Dolly, what do you think that means?
That there's a social ladder and that some people have more power than others.
Absolutely. When you get mad about something and you call a customer service rep and the person on the phone says, I'm sorry, I can't do anything to help you, what do you always do?
Speak to somebody.
Yes. Can I speak to your manager? Can I speak to your boss? Well, who can I talk to? I mean, it's just like commonplace that people do that because there is an assumption in our society that the people at the top can make better decisions, have more discretion than the people at the bottom. Um, Back before Dr. Lyon was superintendent, our superintendent was Dr. Reedy, and he had been around in Frisco since Frisco was like a really small place, like used to be a principal and everything. And it's so funny how many people that knew him back in the day would assume that they could just still reach out to him. And so as superintendent, they just send him an email. So they're mad about their kid's grade or they're mad that their kid got in trouble at recess and they just shoot an email to Dr. Reedy. He's a superintendent. Like you all know, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. There's a hierarchy. There's a way of doing things. So why do we do that? Like, why do we have this hierarchy? Why don't you just go to your contact?
I guess it's in place to try and ensure fair treatment.
Very good. It's to try to make sure that things are fair, because it goes in conjunction with this impartiality and impersonality. People are supposed to be treated the same. In a modern society, you have diversity. You have people of different backgrounds, different expectations. So a bureaucracy is saying that it doesn't matter who you are. This is the policy. This is what you get. But we also acknowledge and understand that sometimes there are exceptions. And so that's why we have the levels, so the people at the top can potentially address that and mediate any kind of conflict that happens. That's why, like, if Rachel was mad about her grade and she was failing AP Government and she goes and storms down to Mr. Spain's office, the first thing he's going to say is, "Have you talked to Ms. Rosenfeld?" Like, he's not going to get involved because he needs to be there later should that conflict continue. Like, he needs to be there to resolve it at a different point. If he starts getting resolved now, she doesn't have any future recourse. And so that's why the top people that have discretion have to stay out of it in the beginning. And that's why you have to talk to the person on the phone that can't really do anything. And you just have to go through your problem again and again. Does the rest of it make sense? There on the screen? Okay. All right. So on the next couple of screens, we're going to look kind of like at people's attitudes about bureaucracy. The thing is, you know, you will never in your lifetime hear as much about bureaucrats in the news as you do about the other parts of our government. Because why would you? Like, why would the news report on delivery of mail? Why would they report on, people got their social security checks today? Like, that's not news. That's not interesting. The only time we ever hear about it is when there's a mess up or there's a mistake. Or we hear about it in relationship to uh, government's too big and we need to downsize government, we need to change it. So it's definitely like an election tool. It's a lot of rhetoric, but we don't really, I think part of the reason people don't like bureaucracy is they don't understand it. Like we don't have any kind of connection to it because it's not as big a part of our daily lives. Um, Paradox. Americans have a favorable impression of their most recent encounter with the federal bureaucracy, but they tend to have a very low opinion of the bureaucracy as a whole. Shakaria, does that sound like something we talked about before with another part of government? That we like the individual, but we don't like the whole.
I'm not sure I remember, so.
That's okay. Rachel, what do you think?
Congress?
Do you remember saying that? How we hate Congress, but we sure do like our individual congressmen. What were the reasons we like our individual congressmen? Just shout them out.
They care about our opinions. Like, we're the constituents.
Good.
They do the incumbent stuff.
Yeah, constituent service, casework, presence in our community, like all of the different things that members of Congress do. So it's the individual connection. So if I go down to the Social Security Agency and have to change my name when I get married and the person is super nice, I walk away going, wow, those people that work at Social Security are so great. And then I go home and I turn on the news and I hear a politician saying how we need to shrink the size of government, and then I feel bad about the bureaucracy. So it's like you get mixed messages. Most people are nice people. People that work for Social Security are your parents and your grandma and whoever. They're people that are doing a job, just like everybody else is out there. So it's an interesting kind of conflict. Okay? When we talk about that rhetoric, then, kind of different attitudes about bureaucracy, and we're going to actually personalize this to Frisco. A lot of people ask this question: do we actually need to have bureaucracy? Do we need all of these people working for government carrying out and influencing policy? Well, one of the schools of thought is that, if you want government to do something, you need to have people to carry that policy out. So if you want government to make sure that there's equity in hiring, then you need an Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. If you want to make sure that your pharmaceuticals are safe to take, then you need a Food and Drug Administration. Okay? Like, you can't have a policy and not have anybody to enforce it. We tried that and it didn't work, remember? There's other attitudes, though, and so this is an old video. It's Marco Rubio when he was running for Senate in Florida, and he's talking about attitudes about bureaucracy. So we'll watch that and we'll kind of just look at the two perspectives.
Hi, I'm Marco Rubio. Throughout the last couple of weeks, we've been traveling the state talking about what government can do to create economic growth. Economic growth, of course, means more jobs. More jobs means more prosperity. More prosperity means more revenue for government at lower tax rates. But what will they use this new revenue for? We all know what they'll use it for. They'll use it to grow government and even our debt. They won't use it to pay down our debt or pay essential government services. And so it's so important to also have a plan, not just to create prosperity, but also a plan to require fiscal discipline on the federal government. Now, all week long, we've been talking about some specific ideas as part of our 12-point plan on what we can do to get our debt under control and government spending in check. Today's the fifth and final installment in that series. And this one is a dual one. The first thing we want to do is, in some ways, symbolic, but a very powerful symbolic message. And that is that government must live within its means as well. And so, I think we should cut by 10% the budget of both the White House and the Congress. Their budgets have grown over the last few years, while your budget, my personal budget, and the budgets of millions of Americans and their businesses have shrunk in an economic downturn. That hasn't been the case in Washington, D.C., where government has basically held itself harmless from this downturn in our economy. It would set a powerful example, and by the way, save a few $1,000,000 if Congress were to cut its budget by 10% and the White House did as well. But here's a bigger idea, one that will really matter. We need to shrink the size of the federal workforce, and here's how you do it. For every 2 civilian federal employee that retires, that leaves, you only hire 1 person to replace them. That allows you, over time, through attrition, to lower the federal workforce without having to lay people off or fire people retire every year. Every time two of them retire, they should only be replaced by one person. And that will allow us to bring the federal workforce under control, something that is a major contributor to our annual deficit and to our debt. Well, I ask you to go on our website and learn about all of our ideas. We've rolled out policy ideas on how to...
Okay, let's take what these two attitudes are and we're going to personalize it to Frisco. Have you guys seen those signs around town about about say no to the new property tax? I can't remember exactly what they're... Say it again.
It's like the red one, it says say no to proposition. I'm talking about this yesterday, like what proposition are
Okay,
you talking
well,
about?
I'm glad you asked. Okay, so in Texas we fund education primarily through property tax, right? And so each school district sets their property taxes with regulations on the state of how high you can be. And so in Frisco, our property tax is set at like 1.04 is the rate. And truthfully, I don't remember if that's per $100 of value or 1,000, which makes a huge difference, but I can't remember. So I need to look it up. Okay? So like the county assessor values your home. They say this is what your home is worth, and then you're taxed based on that. The max that you can tax, according to the state, is 1.17. We're the only city or the only school district in Collin County that isn't there at 117. Everybody else is. Why can we be lower? First of all, what do you think?
Higher wealth in this area.
But I mean, Plano has a lot of wealth, and Allen.
We have like a better budget all around.
Well, what do we have a lot of in Frisco that you don't see in Prosper, Allen, or McKinney as much? We do have a lot of schools, and there's a reason.
More kids.
More like cheaper living costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Construction.
Say wait, what did you say? Okay, we have a lot of. What are we building that's huge right now?
Oh, the Toyota.
This.
Cowboy Stadium.
Okay. All right.
Building the Toyota
Okay.
dealership.
Okay. So I'm gonna go back again. What do we have a lot of in Frisco that our neighboring cities don't have as much of? Development. We have a lot of economic development. We have more stadiums. We have a huge mall. We have more just like entertainment. So we have more commercial revenue than a lot of cities do. Like Allen doesn't have that, right? Like I don't know there's a little bit of it. Prosper, McKinney, they have a little, but they don't have the presence of that as much. So we've been able to keep our taxes lower, okay? So schools are still fine, right? Like we're doing good, no problem. Every school district is going to decide like what their model is going to be for how they're taking care of this. Everyone's growing. Yes, Frisco has been growing faster, but McKinney, astronomical. Prosper's going to have to build 2 more high schools in the next couple of years. But their model's different. They make their schools much larger, and we've gone with this very like small school model, right? Well, up until now, the state of Texas, they give you, if you're a district that's classified as a fast growth district because so many people are moving there, they give you money. Well, we stand, because they're not doing it anymore, we stand to lose $30 million. So, we're not going to get that anymore. So think about Frisco, those of you that have been here for a while, think about the impact of us not getting $30 million for our next budget.
How much do we get right now?
That would be what we would be getting based on our growth, so that's what we're not going to get. So we're just not getting that money anymore. So we have this model where we've been building schools based on what our growth is, based on the fact that we've been getting money to facilitate it. We don't get it anymore. Okay? So that's where this comes in. This is your proposition. We have to vote in order to be able to raise property taxes. So the question comes in, should we do this? And this goes back to philosophically what those people were saying. Okay? So it is a law to promote education, to allow for education, and we have created a system in Frisco that's different than a different, like whatever place is, but our financial system is no longer going to be able to support it. So what do?